Hello guys, this is a review of the film Nothing Bad Can Happen. This is a German film, it's a very serious one at that. I think it's intended for mature audiences only. It doesn't say so in the back, but it's only evidence after watching the film, so viewers' discretion is heavily advised. I'm gonna get started with the plot, and then I'll get into my opinions about the film. As I said, it deals with some very heavy real life topics, so please, if you don't like to even hear about the gruesome aspects of life, then I suggest you don't watch this review. So the movie introduces us to Tor. Tor is a teenager. He's part of, as they mentioned in the DVD itself, the back of the DVD, he's part of a Christian underground punk movement. Basically, these are religious people, but they don't belong to like the Christian church, for example, the Catholic church. They just try to live their lifestyle based on what Jesus did when he was alive, and like their interpretation of, or their assumption of what he would do in today's times. They encounter this family in a van or a truck, whatever, and they can't get it to turn on. The battery seems to be dead, and they're looking for jumper cables. And Tor goes over and he's like, "Oh, we got this. We talked to Jesus and whatnot." And then they pray over the truck, him and his friends, and the truck, ostensibly due to a miracle, turns on. Therefore, the guy, the father, and the head of the family, his name is Benno. Benno invites him over for beer and just to relax. And he seems to be very interested in Tor's beliefs. And this all happens in chapter 1. The movie is divided into 3 chapters. I forget the first one, but I think the second one is love, and then the third one is hope. But I could be wrong. Anyway, that happens, right? Then Tor goes back to his home. He's kind of, I think him and all his friends, they don't have like a family. I think they're orphans. They get stamps, help from the government. And when he goes back, he sees that his friend is having sex, so he's very upset at that, because you're supposed to first be in love and then be married and then go ahead and have sexual intimacy with your partner. And he calls him a hypocrite and gets mad and goes over to Benno's house. Benno, who had at that point offered to let him stay there whenever, like, let him visit whenever he wanted, and he was gonna get food and whatever. So Tor feels very appreciative and very lucky that he doesn't have to spend the night elsewhere, like in the streets and stuff like that. He has somewhere to go, and he's very thankful towards God. And whew, then things start to get freaky when we see that it's Sani. Sani is one of Benno's daughters. It's her birthday, and Benno is like groping her. And like at that point I was like, okay, then I know where this film is going, right? But then it does take a few weird turns after that. We then find out, and I have some notes, that's why I'm kind of looking down sometimes. We then find out that those 2 kids, because it's a mom, a teenage girl, and a little kid, a little boy, we find out that those are not his biological kids, Benno's. So therefore there's like, I mean, it makes it very wrong, but at the same time it doesn't make it as wrong as we initially thought, or at least I thought. Sani's a girl, convinces her mom to go to a party. They invite Tor, and they go against Benno's demands for them to stay home. He doesn't want them like having fun, going anywhere without him. Everything has to be done with him or for him. And then he finds out, and Tor, it's a very harsh scene, because we see Tor like praying at the dinner table in front of Benno, praying that he doesn't say the wrong things, and it's something that I've done, maybe not praying as an adult, surely, but I still, like, I don't know, I try and muster energy from the world, and I'm like, please, like, don't make me say something stupid, or, like, you know, when you're like in job interviews or when you're auditioning or whatever it may be. And he's doing it like out loud, so Benno's listening, and he says, your belief is based on fear. When will you finally take responsibility for your life? And they go like back and forth, and Tor answers with, courage is when you trust God. So we have a little indication of Benno's mindset here. It's still not crystal clear, but just keep that in mind, because later I'll explain, obviously, if it's not evident. Tor's friend apologizes to him and actually acknowledges that he's jealous of Tor, because he said, oh, well, you're not going to get laid because nobody's attracted to you, so how would you ever want to, you know, commit the act of sex if nobody wants to do it with you? That's why I'm doing it, and it's so easy for you. And then he apologizes to him over dinner and or lunch, and he invites him to Berlin, but Tor refuses. Before all of this, I forgot to mention one very huge point in the whole movie. Tor is talking to his friend before anything bad happened, and he tells him, I think that there's like a mission for me, you know, a test or something that God wants me to do. And the friend is like, oh, when you get to one, you'll see it. So keep that in mind as well. After the whole party incident, that when they went and they weren't supposed to go, Benno starts torturing Tor. He, in the form of depriving him of food and then feeding him rotten food. They give him like this, it looks like a chicken, but I don't think it's a chicken. It's something smaller that's been in the trash for a long time, and they make him eat it. So gross. Then Sani takes him away and leaves him, calls an ambulance for him, so he ends up at the hospital, and they save him because he would have probably died of food poisoning, and he was already so dehydrated and sick. And that's chapter 2. Then we start chapter 3, the final chapter of the movie, where basically Tor comes back and still tries to complete his mission, whatever that may be, and Benno takes him to get raped at those, like, what do they call them, brothels, I guess. I think this one in particular leans a lot more towards homosexuality, because you see like people dressed in drag and stuff like that, and lots of men working there as opposed to women. They keep torturing him, and they hang on, I'm reading one final note. Okay. The final huge moment in this film comes after the family and some close friends are playing a game of, I think, charades. Then Tor goes over to another room, and Benno is there with him. I don't know who went there first, but the point is, Benno lies on the floor, gets a pillow, and tells Tor to suffocate him. And that is just a game, and to add more pressure, add more pressure. So Tor is doing that. And then Sani goes in the room and starts actually putting real pressure. He's like, I'm not playing with you. And then Tor is still hanging on. It's kind of like a very nervous, filled scene. And then he gosh, I forget. I did only watch it once, but anyway, he gets loose, and then they start beating up Tor really, really bad. And they tell Sani that they're gonna take him to the hospital, and obviously they're not. They're just gonna dispose the body. And up until the very end, they literally, Benno carries him out of the back of the truck, and he's beating beaten up bad, and he tells them, oh, so something questioning his faith, and he's still like, no, like, I still have, he's like, where's Jesus, where's your God? And he says he's right here in his heart. And then it says based on true events. So that's it for the plot. It really, as usual, my description of the events that occur in the film never do the I never do the film justice. The film is a lot more. I didn't think that they were gonna start barking. Hopefully they shut up soon. But the film is quite gruesome. Here's some of the things that I didn't like. I would have rated the film a lot higher if it weren't for Tor's actions. And you might think, well, obviously nobody's gonna do that. Well, apart from being naive, I think he's an accomplice, to the torture that the other kids had to endure. Because it's one thing for you to want to play the martyr, or for you to really believe in your soul that Jesus has a mission for you, and that mission includes you being tortured for the greater good, or for the realization that, Benno's realization that he's doing something wrong, which I suppose that was the whole point, for Benno to eventually come to terms with the evil acts that he's committing, and for him to turn in his life around, change his ways. But that's one thing. And what Tor did, he saw how Sani was being literally sexually molested, abused, and it's crazy. He told Sani near the end that he was going to give her the courage to leave. And once he got beat up and like almost died, he told Sani, now you have what it takes, or now you have the courage, or something like that. But all in all of like a lot of the things that happened could have been easily avoided, because they had the opportunity to leave. They were not, obviously they were tied down psychologically, especially Sani, who was deadly afraid of her parents, even though her mother treated her relatively well. But at the same time, they could have just, waited for them to go out for to buy groceries or whatever, and then escape. They could have done that. And in the end, Sani and her little brother do end up doing that. We don't get an explanation as to what happened afterwards with their lives, or even with the people whose events inspired this movie. We don't know about that, but I still think, like I said, that Tor had a responsibility. Like I said, I do understand that Tor was naive, right? Like I said, he wasn't necessarily sharp or filled with this intention of taking over the world, as most of us are, like, brought up thinking, get a good job, and earn a lot of money, and don't take no for an answer. Like those type of things. We're filled with these egocentric, that not necessarily bad, but it's very much based on you do what you want, get what you want, live your life. And he wasn't raised like that, apparently. Or if he was, he just threw away all of those beliefs in search of something bigger, which for him was a mission from Jesus. He spoke to him, he felt him, so he wanted to, even though he was like so terrified of Benno and that family altogether, he still remained physically and emotionally with that family, in the hopes, I think, of, like I said earlier, turning their lives around. But you can't put other people in danger, or it wasn't him who put them in danger, but it was him keeping them in danger, especially him being there. Like, people kept telling him, like the mom, like, stop trying to fit in, you're just making him angrier. it's not explained like with little notes, like a literal explanation. Here's what the movie's about. But I feel like Benno, as it says in the back, he kept questioning Tor's beliefs. He wanted Tor to break. He wanted Tor to admit that there was no Jesus, there was no God, there was nothing, and um, it irked him. It really got to him deep. I guess we'd have to see, a prequel of why Benno became the way that he eventually did. But I don't know. I do see it with people. For example, and this isn't like generally speaking, but there are cases where if you're an atheist and somebody's talking about religion, then you kind of get defensive and you're like, whoa, and then you start giving them, criticism, and then they start telling you that you have no faith, so therefore you have nothing, and then it just it becomes a back and forth battle. But since Tor and all of these kids from the underground Christian punk movement, they want to live their lives as Jesus would, then they don't really fight back. So that's very unnerving. Also, the movie is quite gruesome, and the points that they talk about and that they show are not like pleasing to watch. But personally, by the time that what happened? Dun, 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 dun. I think it was near the middle of chapter 2. I was already very detached, emotionally from Tor, because he kept like making these decisions. And I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so much smarter and I would never be in that situation. Who knows? Because I don't think of myself as the most evil person in the world. Definitely not the nicest. I've done bad things, things that I feel are bad, but I've tried to turn not well, not from it, but I definitely learned from them, and I try to make an example and to teach others so that they don't have to fall through the same holes that I did when I was younger. um but having said that, I just really feel like that's too extreme. you know there are mistakes. We are, young and dumb and unaware, but there's a limit to that. And certainly Tor crosses that limit and then runs a lap around and crosses it again. So I was a bit detached. By the time that they took him to the brothel or that one place, like I didn't really feel bad for him. How can I say this? It's not that I didn't feel bad. I just didn't feel as bad as I would have if the movie would have made him a little bit sharper, you know? Because up to that moment, like up to like around, like I said, the middle of chapter 2, I was already guessing everything that was going to happen. I was like, Yep, eventually." I think it would have been worse if Benno raped him, but then Benno mentioned to Tor that um God hates homosexuals, so he must be really burning inside that he's being raped by men, because that's really not right. So then I guess I could see why it wouldn't have been him. But if it would have been Benno, then I think it would have been a lot worse, because that's where the attachment was in the beginning. Let me explain a little more about that. What I mean by that is that he formed a bond with Tor. He wasn't like, hey, come on, I'm going to beat you up and I'm going to torture you, I'm going to not feed you, and I'm going to take you to get raped. Nobody's going to tell you that. Matter of fact, the first time that he kind of snapped on Tor was when he got jealous that Tor gave his daughter a better present than him. So he asked them, he stepped over the kangaroo plush animal that he bought his daughter, and he was like, you know what a kangaroo would have done to you if you stepped over his tail? He said, no. He said jumped or something, and he said no. He would have boxed you, and he punched him straight in the face. And then Tor leaves the house and it starts walking, I guess, back home. And Benno chases after him and says, it was just a joke. It got out of hand. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Please come back, please. So and then before that, they would also like play soccer, and they would work together. That's the whole point of Tor being there, is to work on the house, and in return have open arms and hospitality from that family. But the relationship with Tor and Benno was of that of, very good friends. Like, there's an age difference, or we could say like father and son, or uncle and nephew, or just really good friends of different ages. And then it started turning. This movie reminds me a lot of Martyrs, this horror movie from I don't remember the year. Do not look for the American remake. This one is actually in French. So I feel like I sound so unprepared, but just look it up, Martyrs, and I really recommend it if you like this movie, because what Martyrs has, as a, in in comparison to this one, is Martyrs has a stronger sense of survival. The martyr in question, which is a young girl, I think just a little bit older than Tor, she didn't want to be a martyr. She didn't choose that life, man. She fought her way through thick and thin to leave literally the place that they were holding her captive at, as opposed to Tor, who just kind of fed on that, and he just formed this idea in his head that that was what he was supposed to endure in order to achieve the greater good, I guess. But yeah, definitely, like I said, I was detached from Tor's pain on the latter half of the movie. But for the majority of the people that watch this, I feel like it's not going to be the same. I think it's going to be because I read reviews. The reason I got to this movie in the first place, you think that they advertise this on TV or, on YouTube? They don't. I went to FYE, I call it Fi, is a video store, like CD, music, and like just anime type of stuff. They have a lot of DVDs, used and new. Sadly, it closed down not too long ago, but I was walking through there, and then the minute like you see cover art like this one, then you're like, oh, that's strange. So then I read, and I had actually forgotten what it said in the back. Honestly, I make it a point to really forget so that I'm completely surprised. And but I knew that it was gonna be an extreme film because I looked it up on Amazon, the reviews, and they were like, oh, it's such a hardcore movie. It's nasty. It's this, and but it has a good message. And I was like, okay, then that's a perfect movie for me. Sorry, I could withstand like a very raw and hurtful movie that ultimately teaches something. And this one, I think, if anything, it could teach you to have faith, but I think not. I wouldn't even go there. I think what it teaches is for you to, yes, be honest to yourself, be honest with yourself and others around you. Live your life the way that you think you were meant to live it, but have limits, because then things could go bad real quick. Don't trust just about anyone you see, no matter how alone you are. Let's say there's a saying in Spanish that translates something to, it's better a bad person to have a bad person that you know than to meet a good person that you don't know. It's hard to translate it, but basically what that means is that even if you're with someone, let's say some friends or some family members that are pretty messed up, it's better to be like around people that are effed up than to go out and expose yourself with the hopes of finding a good person. I mean, it's hard to explain it. I know it doesn't make sense. You're like, no, leave the toxic family. It just, I can't explain it right. But in this case, I think that it's true. Sure, his friends were a little like, because he has a he has seizures. I can't. I'm sorry. He has seizures, and his friends seem to be like unmoved by it. Like, "No, well, we don't really care." That's how he meets, or that's how Benno, and him start forming that bond, because Benno goes over to him. He's like, your friends don't seem to be very like interested in your health because you were down in the floor and nobody cared. He's like, oh, it's something that happens to me all the time. And so he starts thinking that maybe his friends are not very good friends, and Benno is, because he picked them up and he took him home and he fed him. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of wolves and sheep's clothing, I guess would be the right way to describe it. This particular DVD is pretty cool. Like, you could actually like switch covers. There's a different one here. I ugh I didn't I didn't take it out right. So, because you know how you when you open the DVDs, they have like this plastic thingy. Sometimes I don't take it all the way, so that's why that happened. um but yeah, it has this booklet, and inside it has a Q&A with the director and the producer. I hope you can see that. And then it has some shots from the movie itself, and more Q&A. And I read through most of it. It's not that much. And as a lot of people in the comments for the reviews for the film say, I would have really liked to know what happened to the real people, you know the people that actually lived through this. Maybe a little clip, a little interview, or maybe just a description uh, with a slide or two about what happened to them. But all in all, I guess I would rate this film 7.5. 7.5 out of 10. And yeah, 7.5 out of 10 in its category. It's a really good film. It's believable. And when you have this genre based on true events and drama, and whatever the subcategory would be for this film, you need realism. You can't have like your Mean Girls type of vibe, or Bruce Almighty. You need real. um Something that they said in the Q&A is that they didn't want like very famous actors and stuff like that. I think they said it in the Q&A because they wanted it to be very believable. And I agree. I think it's what they said for this movie. um I've said it before with other films that I reviewed. When you have fresh actors that are not trained, their whole lives from the moment they're born to, you have a different type of performance. And I don't say like, I never say every single actor that gets trained has a robotic response, but it's very clear when you're like on your mark and you're very like aware, and then you seem to always see the actor goes like this because this is a good side, and stuff like that, that if you look into it, you see that they're kind of just celebrities being celebrities in a film. And it's a lot different for the most part. There are exceptions, and I still watch a lot of huge celebrities that I think and that I know are clearly amazing actors. But is for these type of films, it's a tricky situation, a very tricky situation. It's better to get people that you don't know and people that are new or that don't have a lot of acting experience, but that have the talent to back it up, because they perform, as we see in this film, as we see in Hearthstone. What's that other film? Like, there's a lot of films um, that if I look through here, I could literally pick out a handful and show them to you, but I didn't prepare for that. But yeah, I'd give this film a rating of 7.5 out of 10 in its category, and that would be it for this one. Thank you for watching.